Hello, everyone. I was looking at Instagram the other day, and a girl that I follow who had cancer had a major operation about 6 months ago where they removed the vast majority of the organs in and around her bowel. For a woman, that's going to include all of her reproductive organs as well. She's in her mid to late teens, and the operation was incredibly long and complicated. After having battled with the cancer for a number of years, this operation offered the best opportunity to try to treat the disease. Over the last 6 months, she has had a very problematic recovery. There was a number of instances of infections and septicemia and ongoing problems, and even as of today, she's still not fully recovered 6 months after. However, about a week ago, following her recovery plan, she was due to have some follow-up chemotherapy to try to cleanse any remaining cancer particles that could be embedded in her system. And to perform this function, they did some diagnostics first, one of which involved a scan. These would be used as baseline references to monitor any future development. Unfortunately, they found something on the scan. It appeared ostensibly as if the cancer had already returned on her liver. Had there been any sign of that before the operation went ahead, they would likely have done a major liver resection as a precaution, included with the rest of her surgery. Her prognosis is unknown. But I've thought a lot about people in her position and the effects on someone's mentality that sort of information must have. I don't want to marry myself to this, but often when I hear about someone in a similar position, I have this kind of private, personal therapy where the next time I take a shower, I take a cold shower. I'm not sure I fully understood why I was doing it at first, but I've given it some thought. I know that subjecting myself to this insignificant level of suffering doesn't detract from that other person's experience. And I'm aware that I'm no sort of messiah to be trying to sacrifice something myself to alleviate anything this person's going through. And quite often the fact was I would usually do this when someone in this position was no longer with us. When I had news that they'd died. I guess I told myself in the beginning that I did it because I couldn't understand their position, but I knew that if they had the choice between being where they were now or being where I was, they would definitely choose the latter. And that meant that I could bear that because it was somebody else's preference. They would actually want it. So no matter how much I didn't want it, I could wrap my head around this being my choice. I knew if the dead person had the option, they would jump at the chance to be me taking a cold shower instead of them. And I thought that gave it some kind of value. It was something I didn't want to do, but I shouldn't just dismiss it as something I shouldn't do because it's not what I liked. Because that was just a matter of perspective. I felt that it woke me up to a very comfortable life that I live, and that there was a reality beyond just internet pornography and energy drinks. And that it was important that I was somehow in touch with that reality, even only in a small way. So today I had this cold shower. It's the 14th of November. It's cold and raining outside. Taking a cold shower is way easier if you're in the middle of July, and the second you step out, you're going to drip dry anyway. When I'm on the beach, even in a wetsuit, sometimes getting into the water can be uncomfortable. But I see that there's something I want to do. I want to go surf or whatever. And I will acclimatize to the water once I'm in it. But there's an end goal that is positive that will make up for it. I suppose on some level I have to believe that the end goal of me being more aware and in touch with reality is in itself a positive. And that it makes some small amounts of suffering that I choose to do valid. And the truth is, when I step into the shower, the only thing stopping me from doing it is my mind. It's the mental block. That's the only thing preventing me from getting under the streams of cold water. It's not going to hurt me. Nothing bad is going to happen. I just won't like it. And it was in thinking about that today that I realized maybe there was another element to this practice that I was doing. I can choose to step out of that shower anytime I want. The people in these positions cannot choose what's going to happen, but they have to process it all the same, and to at least some degree live their lives. It was a mystery to me, and and it still is to some degree, how they can maintain their sanity in such a position. But I respect there is some element of it that is dependent on your perspective. And then in that small way, you might be able to prepare or make a change that will have some real world impact on the situation, or at least your experience of it. And in stepping into that cold shower, I guess in a selfish way, I feel like maybe if there is a small amount of, not to be patronizing, but some sort of suffering that I choose to do, it might mentally prepare me in some way for the kind of suffering that I can't choose. And the truth is that the longer I've done this for, the better at it I've got. And it's not just about acclimatizing. It's not just knowing that given enough time the cold water won't feel so bad. It always frustrates me to have to go in, get under the shower. It's not something I want to do. But I begin to understand that there's a large mental component to it. And training my mind to process that mental component might have some benefit. And I know that the first times I tried to do this, my reaction was to tense my muscles and try and fight the cold, and maybe I could generate enough body heat that the cold would somehow balance it out. Or I would just dip in and out trying to mediate my exposure. And there were times I'd laugh and shout in the shower like an idiot because it was a distraction from what was going on. But nowadays, I find I'm more transfixed on the experience. I'm in a sort of trance because I'm not sure. Well, I'm not saying that fighting doesn't work. I understand that there's another battle that perhaps in at least that scenario has a bigger effect. And to some degree that's the one that fights the anxiety, fights the prediction of what's going to happen, abandons the fear of the moment, and it's a kind of sleepy feeling. And I suppose that's the best way I can describe it. I am finding that when I begin to come away from the train tracks of my normal behaviors and still live life in a somewhat orthodox way, but just take slight deviations, even just my approach to them, find that there's an explorative process going on. Sometimes I'm finding out things about myself where for a long time I've held a belief I'm a certain way, but then when the rubber meets the road and there's some reality to the situation, I find out that I'm a little bit different from what I thought. And I try not to ever be excited or disappointed about what I find, but I do try to think what habits are ingrained there that I might have to break to develop my behaviours in a more positive way, or at least a more healthy way. Thanks everyone for listening. I know this was a bit more serious than usual, but I'm very cold, but mostly dry. Hope you have a good day. See you around.